Yes! Welcome into Sports Bet Betting Insight today, Pauly and Teddy. Monday, September 17th. You know how we do it on Monday, the deep dive. We recap the wild weekend with college. Bad beats, bad bets, bad for the books. Oh, the line movement was absurd with some all-time bad beats as well. More Hail Marys. And we'll get to the NFL in a second. Just one game tonight. That'll be in the new feature here. We'll just do Monday Night Football. Get the hell out of here as we get a rapid fire with college and pro. We start, one of the few times we'll start with boxing. And the sport let us down again. A great fight, but another disgrace with Adelaide Bird, who shouldn't be involved in judging ever again. This is now the fifth time she's done this. Dana White with profanity-laced tirade a couple years ago when Varner took on Gillard. Two judges had it 30-27 for Varner. She had it 30-27 the other way. Letterman had it 7-2 through 9 for Golovkin, and she comes out 118. Yeah, she actually scored at 10-2 for Alvarez. Congrats out there, 27-1 at 5 dimes if you had the draw. Wasn't unexpected, though, in boxing.
Yeah, I mean, look, there was a great tweet. I probably should have put it up here from Tony Miller saying, this is why millennials are laughing at boxing. But this has been going on forever. And this is why, at least one of the reasons why the sport has gradually declined over the course of the last 50 years. I mean, it's probably better to say nothing than to say what Bob Bennett said from the Nevada Athletic Commission on Adelaide Bird. Quote, she's an outstanding judge. Obviously, she was a little wide tonight. She wasn't in the ballpark. She had a bad night. It happens. I'm not going to kill her for it. We'll go through the fight and see why she saw it so differently from the other two. That's not the quote you want to hear. Though, kudos to anyone that had the draw out there, as you were talking about, paid as high. There were some spots that had as high as 30-1. Most books in the range of 15 or 20-1 on the draw, and a whole lot of people coming back to get a refund from their tickets after the GGG Alvarez fight on Saturday night.
I had Triple G winning. He dominated the middle rounds. Well, I guess they'll try again in May. Good fight, entertaining, but again, more controversy, another black eye for boxing. They ran out long ago. Remember, we just had the debacle with Pacquiao and Horn, too. Pacquiao actually tweeted, where'd they get these judges? Australia? But she's done this 5 or 6 times. She just got to go. All right, NFL review. Early on, the favorites crushed it. They went 8-0 straight up and 6-2 against the spread. And then late, you had the Redskins, Broncos, and Dolphins all winning outright, Teddy. The New England-New Orleans game was big. We'll get to more of the total, what happened as well. But they kind of traded money this week.
Yeah, I mean, favorites finish up 8-6 against the number. As you mentioned, the 3 late games with outright upset. Also, the Niners, Colts, and Bills hung within the closing number for the 6 underdogs to cash. But we got some bad beats we got to talk about. What about the Jets in the first half? They fumbled the punt. Muff punts make me crazy, Pauly. What about you?
Yeah, that one was bad. You're supposed to cash that ticket. The Raiders are out of timeouts, and the Jets are getting the ball. Seattle, a bad bet. Can't lay 14-point favorite. You got to be kidding me. They have now faced the 32nd ranked pass defense and the 32nd ranked run defense from last year. They have 1 touchdown as Wilson led them on a score late, laying that big price, and they're lucky to win the game at home. Bad beat, bad for the books. Chiefs, Eagles total falling 47, open 48. Closed 46.5. Boom. Right in the middle, 47. And this exploded in the fourth quarter.
Yeah, it sure did. All right. Let's talk about the Seahawks for a minute, because this is a team that I've got my numbers are slightly different. I have them against the 31st ranked pass defense and the 32nd ranked run defense from last year. And the fact that they're laying 14 and don't even score 14. Yeah, this is a concern now for Seattle. Certainly bad bets for anyone that had the Seahawks. You talk about that total. The Chiefs-Eagles total, 1 of 3 out of 14 games played on Sunday. 3 of them had totals fall right on or around the number. You had the Chiefs and Eagles, and that was a disaster result for the books. That fell right in the middle. 48 at the open, 46.5 at the close, lands 47. 6-3 halftime turns into an overcash for those who bet it well with that big late scramble. But that wasn't the only one. You had the Patriots-Saints. That opened 54.5. It closed 55/55.5, landed 56. No big deal, right? The game sneaks over the total. Except for that total got bet up all week. It was 57 midweek and then got bet back down again. So good bettors able to cash either side of that one, a legit middle, even though the opener / closer doesn't show it. Let's not forget the Redskins-Rams, too. Opened 46, bet up to 47, landed 47. A third result where bettors either won or pushed on their total bets. Never a good result for the house.
And the Patriot game over was a horrible beat because it was 43 at the half. Breeze and Brady combined for 13 second-half points, and the Saints kept moving the ball and then would go for it on fourth down and couldn't cash in New England territory. That's horrible. Bad for the books. Dolphins took money. +5 down to 3.5, won outright against the Chargers. Well, we thought this was going to happen. An embarrassment for the league. They're playing in a stadium that holds 25,000. They couldn't sell the frickin' game out. And I've met one Dolphin fan in my life. They can't sell out their home games, but there was a "Let's Go Dolphins" chant that broke out, and Rivers even said you could hear the roar when we missed the game-winning field goal from all the Dolphins fans. They play the Chiefs next week. It's probably going to be all Kansas City fans. What happens if the Chargers start 0-3? Nobody will go to the games, at least Charger fans from Los Angeles.
Yeah. And look, ton of Dolphins money in that game. The wise guys were all over Miami. They were anticipating the fact that the Dolphins spent the week in Southern California was something that bettors looked at very seriously. And obviously, even though Miami was the team settling for field goals in that contest, they kicked enough of them and, of course, survived the game winner. That's the Chargers 0-2 based on the kicker missing 2 field goals at the end. You know, that's tough. But you're right about that. Look at the quote from Rivers. The loudest roar came at the end after the missed field goal. You got to see how many Dolphins fans there were. Here's a tweet from Arash Markazi. Quote, "There's a large contingent of Miami Dolphin fans at StubHub. The crowd is chanting, 'Let's go Dolphins.'" When you're talking about home field edges, oh, give them 3 points. Oh, give them 3 points. Anyone that's giving the LA Chargers 3 points for their home field right now is making, in my opinion, an egregious mistake.
I'm with you on that one. Super contest update, Westgate. Got over 2,500 people that entered, $1,500 to get in. 5 games against the spread every week. The consensus after going 0-5 went 3-2. Caught a break with the Steelers, 5.5, good line. As no Bradford, that was bad. That news came out on Saturday. That was surprising that he wasn't able to go. That the knee gave him problems there. And we also have a pros against Joe's update. Professionals on the Saints. I don't know what they were doing. Patriots 43-6 off a loss since 2004. Brady 445 yards. And good luck. Take the wise guy. Drop the Weiss. You're just another guy if you're taking the Jets. Give me a break. Blown out again. 0-2 against the spread.
Well, again, on Friday's show, on the weekend preview, we're doing a pros versus Joes. What we're trying to do on Monday's show is say how the pros do, how the Joes do. And here it is, real simple. You know, with the plays we listed on Friday, pros go 4-1. When the Titans, Chiefs, Dolphins, and Bucks, the only thing they lost with was Minnesota. Obviously, at the time that we recorded, it did not appear as if the Sam Bradford injury was going to cause them to miss the game, and the money coming in on the Vikings ended up getting bet the other way by kickoff on Sunday. The Joes had an okay weekend. You know, they won with the Patriots and the Raiders. They lost with the Cowboys, Seahawks, and Cardinals. Arizona, lucky to get the win against Arizona, although they did save their season with that come-from-behind victory in the fourth quarter and overtime.
Up next, big game breakdown. Monday Night Football, Giants. Try to get a win. Huge game for them. They go to Philly next week, the status of Beckham. We get to all that coming up on SportsBit. Betting Insight today on SBRpicks.com.
Go to SBRodds.com. Browse, compare, and shop live odds available at top online sportsbooks.
Back on SportsBit, Betting Insight today. Time for big game breakdown. Always sponsored and powered by Bet Online. Check out the bonus page, sportsbookreview.com, for the latest and best offers to open a new account today. Giants are 3, -120 at home. There's some 3.5s out there. 42 the total. The line's going to move on whatever happens with Beckham. McAdoo, quote, "He responded well to treatment, responded well to his work on Thursday, got a little bit more today, but he's still limited. They need him. You saw what happened Sunday against Dallas. And the problem is they can't run the ball. I mean, you bring in Brandon Marshall. You have Ingram, who they selected the tight end out of Ole Miss. But between the offensive line and the running backs, they can't establish a running game, and it certainly hurts Eli."
No, yeah, no question. I mean, when you talk about how the Giants offense is supposed to work, OBJ is supposed to stretch the field. That's supposed to open things up for the running game and some of the underneath throws. for Eli Manning. Without OBJ, obviously that doesn't work. And when you have a running back core, what they have, Perkins and Darkwa, 10 carries for 30 yards against Dallas. That is arguably the weakest RB core in the NFL. There's no other speed burners at wide receiver without Beckham. That leaves an offense with relatively few options. We're talking about a team that got 3 points and 13 first downs against Dallas. But, this is a defense that was number 2 in the NFL last year. They held up despite being on the field for most of the night at Dallas. Cowboys, 71 snaps, but only managed 1 touchdown in that ballgame.
Okay, what do you think about this Giants offense? You have an interesting theory of something you want to point out about the offenses that stunk in week 1. How'd they do in week 2?
Sure. I mean, one of the things we spend a lot of time with on SportsBit, how good are the offensive lines? And the mainstream media is going to talk about skill position talent and fantasy and all that. We want to know who's going to win the battle in the trenches. And when you look at week 1 and the offenses that didn't work, they were all because of offensive line problems. San Francisco, Seattle, Indy, Cincinnati, Houston, along with the Jets and Giants. None of them put up more than a single touchdown on the scoreboard in week 1. And guess what? None of those offenses worked in week 2 either. The defense that shut down the G-men, they got torched for 6 touchdowns yesterday. New York, what are we going to call Eli Manning? Mediocre? Let's call him a mediocre quarterback. They have an offensive line that ranks among the weaker ones in the NFL. They have a banged-up receiving core, whether OBJ plays or not. And oh, by the way, this offense has gotten statistically weaker every year since McAdoo became the offense coordinator, and it's gotten even weaker since he became the head coach. So I've got my concerns about the Giants' offense suddenly flipping the on switch. I don't know what's going to happen this week. I don't know what's going to happen in 2017. I wouldn't anticipate it happening tonight.
Well, they can get right against this Lions defense. Terrible. Dead last on Football Outsiders rankings last year. Decent numbers against Arizona, although that was against Carson Palmer, and Johnson left with an injury, and Palmer was terrible in that one. Remember, they couldn't force any turnovers. Just horrible numbers last year with Detroit on defense. And here's the game. This is where Matthew Stafford lays an egg usually. In this spot last year, they couldn't do anything, and they lost on the road against the Giants. If the Giants are a playoff team, and we think they are, he'll lose this game because he has 1 win in his career on the road against a team that finished the season with a winning record. He played well last week against Arizona, but again, no running game to speak of. Abdullah, 15 carries for 30 yards in the win.
The one thing the Lions did do in week 1, obviously Stafford got going. I was impressed with how the defense stepped up in the second half of that ballgame. And there's a lot of hope for the rookie linebacker, Jarrad Davis. He had 9 tackles and a fumble recovery against Arizona. Remember, the entire linebacking core for the entire season in 2016, they didn't have a sack, they didn't have a fumble recovery, they didn't have an interception. So the fact that Davis recovered a fumble in week 1 is something that the Lions couldn't do defensively a season ago. Defense coordinator Terrell Austin, quote, talking about Jarrad Davis. I thought he was outstanding for a young guy. Really flew around. Physical. Really, he makes a difference in our defense in terms of our temperament and how we go. And that's something that your middle linebacker should do because he's really, at the end of the day, he's the quarterback of your defense. He stands in front of our guys. He calls the defenses, no hesitation. They've got a rookie calling defenses and calling their plays in the huddle, and it's working. At least it did in week 1. But so we talked about all the offenses that didn't work in week 1, and none of them really worked in week 2. Let's talk about the decent teams, because basically every decent team off of week 1 lost 1 in week 2. The Titans won, the Patriots won, the Cardinals won, the Redskins won, the Seabags won. The Chargers kicker cost them 2 games. It's not their fault. But other than that, the 0-2 teams, pretty much the teams that are supposed to be 0-2. The Jets, the Bills, the Niners, the Browns, the Bengals, the Colts, the Saints, the Bears. Do the Giants belong on that list? I don't think they do. But, so it's a dilemma here. You have an offense that didn't work in week 1, and none of the offenses that didn't work in week 1 worked in week 2. And you have all the good teams found a way to win week 2. I don't think the Giants are bottom feeders in that regard. I don't think they deserve to be ranked with the Bears and the Browns and the Bengals and the Jets.
Well, the Bengals aren't supposed to be 0-2. I can tell you that. We'll get to this game coming up. This might go to 4. Probably Jimmy Vaccaro thinks it goes to 4 if Beckham plays. So watch the markets out there with his status. Up
no
next,
question.
big game
we will see heavy
with the deep dive. College football recap coming up. We go through bad beats, bad bets, bad for the books, and play of the day on SportsBet. Betting Insight today on SBRpicks.com.
Research before you bet. Be sure to check out SBR Picks for the best game predictions, breakdowns, and much, much more.
Wrapping up on SportsBet, Betting Insight today. We love Mondays here. Deep dive now, college football. That's how we do it on Monday. Play of the day coming up. We've been on fire. Revenge of the Road Shock. How about this, Teddy? It depends what the professionals did, but this was a lot of road teams took money and they covered.
Oh, they didn't just cover. They killed them. Look, Notre Dame killed Boston College. Iowa State killed Akron. Okie State against Pitt. And we'll talk about this one again when it comes to bad results for the house. North Carolina over Old Dominion. Virginia Tech blows out ECU. BYU gets annihilated again. Oregon all over Wyoming. Clemson winning big at Louisville. And let's not forget, Purdue was an underdog. That line may go down as 2017's worst. They were plus 7.5 at Missouri, a game that they won. And, of course, the Oklahoma State, it opened 10, closed 11. That was as high as 14.5 before some late wise guy buyback. So we're talking about road favorites parlayed with the over. They're cashing again and again. That's usually not a good result for sportsbooks, both here in Las Vegas and offshore. But what do we call it? Revenge of the Road Chalk. Pretty good weekend for favorites in college football.
Here's a bad beat. Lafayette was ahead in the third quarter at A&M, catching 24, and a horrible push in that one as A&M got things going and Lafayette couldn't score in the second half.
Yeah, I mean, really tough beat if you had La plus the points of Raging Cajuns. As you mentioned, they led 21-14 at the break, and it's not like Texas A&M's offense really got going in the second half. I cashed a ticket on the over in that ballgame. I was lucky to do so. There was a pick six. There was one guy who broke like 4 tackles and then sprinted for the final TD for A&M. If you have the Raging Cajuns, that's tough. Plus 24, you get a push in a game that you're leading by a touchdown at halftime. It happens. My condolences.
There's some bad bets. Friday night, Temple took money, 10.5 up to 14.5. They finally bet against UMass and they lost. They can't figure out UMass, who took money in the first 3 weeks. Temple won 29-21. Look at this. The added extra game. Insanity. Charlotte opened 1, got as high as 14 against NC A&T. They lost 35-31. 13, 14-point move, and they lost the game.
Yeah, but okay, let's be real careful when we're talking about these added board games. All right, because I went and tracked the line movement on this, because obviously it's a big move. This might have been one better, literally. You look at Penny. Penny went from 1.5 to 3, then from 3 to 6. 6.5, then 7, then 7.5, then 10, then 13. You're talking about much lower limits, and you're not talking about going through any of the medium numbers. They're just, boom, moving from one key to the next. They get a limit bet, boom, then move it to the next key number. Still, whatever group or groups bet the crap out of Charlotte got that game completely wrong. Not as close as the final score indicated, but that's not as bad as the people that were betting Nevada. The Wolfpack were minus 34. They lost outright at home to Idaho State. They were never even in the game. They were down 23-7 at halftime. But don't think for a minute that added board lines are the moral equivalent of regular board lines. They're not. And they bookmakers take much lower limits and they move the numbers much quicker because the only ones who bet these are the wise guys.
Yep, still a good number, though. And again, one of the biggest upsets in college football history. We've had 3 in the first month of the season, as Nevada goes down as a huge favorite. Central Michigan was a sexy pick and an upset pick. They opened 11, closed 8.5, lost to Syracuse 41-17. Bama took money, 28.5 up to 31. Colorado State hung in there and lost 41-23. This was a bonanza for the books Saturday night. What a job Justin Wilcox is doing. Cal couldn't stop a nosebleed under Sonny Dykes. They're 3-0. Pick 6, bringing the house every play. Old Miss went from 3.5 to 7. Cal beat them 27-16. They're 3-0 with USC coming to town Saturday.
They sure are. All right, Chippewas, Central Michigan at Syracuse. Cluster injuries at wide receiver for Central. Watch that moving forward. It certainly doomed them in the second half against the Orange. What do we have for Alabama now? 2 straight lethargic non-covers by the Crimson Tide. They're kind of treating their schedule the way a pro team would. They're pacing themselves. Good showing for Colorado State in that one. And boy, that was a real big swing for the house. In the first half of that game, Cal looked like they were going to get blown out. Ole Miss up and down the field, making big plays, a couple of 70-yard TD receptions for the Rebels in the second half. They look tired, man. Real tired. Book bonanza. Books cleaned up on this one. Bettors got burned as Ole Miss got the straight up loss. Cal wins by double figures after the late pick six.
And this isn't good for the books. Florida 4.5 up to 6.5. Little buyback back to 6. Bam. Falls 6 on the Hail Mary. Tough. It looks like Florida's going to run them out. I'm not going to call it a bad beat because Florida was going to score to go up 20-3. They fumbled at the 1 yard line through the end zone. And then it got crazy with all the points in the fourth quarter.
Yeah, but when you're talking about bad result for the books, anytime you're landing in the middle in a big national TV game, that's a problem. Basically, everyone I talk, I won with Florida, -4, -4.5, -5, -5.5. You know, people I'm talking with Tennessee, I grabbed a little bit at 6.5 right before kick. I grabbed some 6.5. So, you know, when you're paying out both sides, that's a middle. And when it comes on a Hail Mary like that, where the defense doesn't even play it right, you know, oops, that's a bad loss for Butch Jones. That's a bad result for the books as Florida, Tennessee lands right in the middle.
Teddy, it's a frickin' epidemic. It happens every week. How about the SMU TCU game? SMU's going to have deleted half. A guy who's 5'11" caught the Hail Mary. 5 guys from SMU around him. Nobody jumped.
And that's a brutal beat if you had SMU money line first half. I saw some guys whining about it on Twitter. You know, and look, there's going to be bad beats first halves. You know, whenever you're shortening the amount of the competition, the lines are the results are likely to be closer to the number, and you're likely to have more bad beats. But that was certainly a tough one if you had SMU on the money line. Brutal with their inability to handle a Hail Mary pass to a 5'11" receiver.
Ridiculous. Bet for the books continues. This is never good. Friday night, ESPN, Arizona, 20 up to 26. UTEP might be the worst team in the country, 63-16. Remember, UTEP took money against Rice, who couldn't come. What was that, 62-7 against Stanford? And Rice beat UTEP 63-16. I think Arizona's awful, and UTEP can't even compete in that one. Air Force, you can't lay anything with Michigan. They can't move the ball on offense, and plus they have red zone issues. They were feisty. Air Force was in that game in the fourth quarter, plus 27 down to 23. Michigan 29-13.
Yeah, I mean, the Arizona UTEP game, a disaster for the books. I mean, it really was. When you have a late night standalone game with a really terrible team in it, like UTEP, you know where the money's going to come. It's going to come against that team. When that team doesn't cover and there's a 6-point line move and everyone gets the cash with ease, yeah, that's bad for the house. And boy, the Falcons money, I mean, it started early in the week and it did not stop. We highlighted it right here on SportsBet as one of the line movers. It kept coming to game day. You know, Michigan now 1 for 10 in red zone execution. They've only scored 1 touchdown in 10 tries in the red zone. That's worst in the country. 0 of 4 against Air Force. You know, the kicker, Quinn Nordine for the Falcons, 11 of 13 on field goals this season, 9 PATs for 42 points. You don't want your kicker to be your leading scorer after 3 games.
Nope. More bad for the books. Carolina from 7-11. They thumped Old Dominion 53-23. For the first time, Nebraska lost to a MAC team. Northern Illinois plus 14 down to 10.5. They won 21-17. Clemson, Louisville's total 57.5 up to 61. Landed 68. And there was also plenty of steam in the Tulsa-Toledo game, which had a 7-point move. There was over 100 combined points scored in that one.
Yeah. The books lost bad on that one because the bettors were betting Tulsa plus the points. Heavy money against Toledo in that contest. And obviously when you're scoring over 50 and you're catching points, you're likely to cash those tickets. And we saw heavy money on the over in that contest as well, which means dog and over parlays cashed, all the Tulsa money cashed, and the books did not enjoy a game that you wouldn't think is going to get a ton of action. That one got a ton of action. 2 fun non-Power 5 conference schools to watch.
How about this one? These 2 schools fired their defensive coordinators, and they got worse. Virginia Tech bet up from 22-27. They beat East Carolina 64-17. Virginia Tech plays Clemson in 2 weeks at home. What a game that'll be. Jackson, the freshman, 400 yards and 5 touchdowns. And oh, man, Purdue plus 7.5 down to 5.5. Nobody at the game. Missouri at home loses 35-3. Brom can flat out coach. Purdue is back.
Oh, my God. Purdue. We're talking about ATS darlings of college football. We talked a lot about Oklahoma State and their 3-0 ATS start and how they've become the public team. Purdue's not far behind. They have beat the closing line in their first 3 games under Jeff Brom by 76.5 points. And of course, in those 2 games, you talked about it, East Carolina, Missouri, 2 teams that fired their defensive coordinators during the week. And yeah, didn't make a whole lot of difference. It wasn't necessarily the DC's fault for either squad.
All right, fun time here. 2 weeks left in the baseball season. We'll get to a couple games coming up, and then we got a lot of action. It's like there's 3 games Friday again in college football, and we got a Thursday night game, obviously, in our first London game coming up. So a lot going on in NFL and college. We love it on sports September through February. Money time, play of the day. Let's keep it going. And what we have a 4-game winning streak, and then we have to give it out early with the Bradford news. Vikings go down against the Steelers. Betting number 290. Giants, Lions under 42. Like this under a lot. Last year they played same venue in New York. Well, New Jersey, actually, but 17-6 final. Stafford shit himself. He'll probably do it again. Under in this one, low-scoring game. Check the status of Beckham. We still like it under. That's it. Fun show every Monday here on SportsBet. Let's keep it going. Tell your friends. We'll talk to you tomorrow. Pauly and Teddy, SportsBet. Betting insight today on SBRpicks.com. Thanks, Juan.